Good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you were on the lifeboat. Ultramaga, good to see you. Rick Smith, Charlie Mullins, glad to see you. Dennis, glad that you're here, man. Good morning. So, it's been a while since I did a morning show, and I'll be honest with you, I miss it. There's something about the morning shows that are just different, and I don't know. I like getting up and banging these out. I've been pulling the double duty in that I'm beating myself up pretty viciously while my brother is in town because it does benefit the boat, and I'm going to address that briefly because I had somebody send an email. I take that back. It might have been I'm not sure if it was a comment or how I got it, but somebody said, "What the hell does all of this have to do with sobriety?" And the answer to the question is, it has to do with connection. We talk all of the time about how connection is the opposite of addiction. And I'll be honest, there's not much I won't do to connect. And right after I got the message from this person that says, "What the hell did this have to do with sobriety?" Meaning me vomiting milk or whatever I'm doing with my brother. Shortly after getting it, I got a comment from somebody that said, "I'm just starting to go through all of the videos on the lifeboat, and I'm curious as to how you were able to get over heroin." Obviously, somebody who is struggling with opiates, and I thought to myself, I would puke milk up every day for the next 6 months if I thought I could get one a day. If I thought I could get one person a day. I ate that foul fish for the exact same reason that I vomited milk and the exact same reason that I hurled fish. The idea is that you create a connection of sorts, and then that connection enables somebody to start asking questions. The opposite of addiction is most assuredly connection. Last night, I went to sleep early on account of the fact that I wasn't feeling really well from yesterday's festivities. Yeah. The milk is really, really a vile and awful challenge. It really is. Black coffee, by the way. I'm not even joking. But it's a vile way to attract attention to the channel, but well worth it. And I laid down last night at probably about 7:40, I think, and instantly out. I woke up a couple of times during the night to let the tummy heal, so to speak, and it gave me a bit of rest and relaxation, and I found myself up early, and I also had a bit of a migraine, which didn't have anything to do with coffee, but I started to go through videos that I had saved. And sometimes the videos that I have saved I've never seen before. And sometimes I've seen them or watched the beginning of them and thought, I need to go through this a little deeper at a later date, whatever the case may be. But it ends up being a lot of content that I need to watch again. And I saw little 60-second spots from probably 40 or 50 really famous people that you would all know really well. As an example, David Bowie was one of them. Elton John was one. Billy Joel was in there. A lot of rock stars and a lot of famous people that addressed their drug or alcohol problem. And in every single case, they all mentioned how far they got cut off from the people they cared about when they were in the life. And this is something that I struggle with on a pretty regular basis when I'm looking backward at the life that I led and how I got shut off from the people that I love. Speaking of which, before I forget, if we could get some prayers for Lady Crispin and her family. She's having some real issues in Australia. Their family has just not had a break with everything that's been going on with, she just recently lost her grandmother. There are more people in the family that are sick now, and her son is also having some stuff up here and requires and requires to get a MRI to look at his sinuses and his nasal. Please pray for Fiona. You all know how much I love her, and she could use some prayers. So could her family. But watching all of these people talk about how they were shut off from the people they loved makes you look back at your past. And this is something that I do in journaling, because if I sit and just start to think about it, it gets trapped up here. And when things get trapped in my dome, I'm in trouble. If I start getting trapped into bad memories from my past and I keep them up in the head, I'm starting to risk my serenity. And when I start to risk my serenity, I start to risk my sobriety. So I work through those problems with a pen and a piece of paper. And I started to write down some of the things from my past. And one of the really painful ones was that I could sit in a room with Papa Scoville, or I could sit in a room with anybody from my family or any of my friends from my past and have absolutely no connection. I've spoken many times on the boat of my friend who was in a wheelchair. He broke his neck and has been confined to a chair since. We call him Lurch. I'm sure that he'd be really unhappy if he knew I was referring to him as Lurch here, but it's always been our nickname for him. And I was thinking of Lurch, and I remember the last time that the two of us were together, we went and saw a film together. And it was a long movie, just a horrendously long movie. But I sat in that movie theater with Spanx Calhoun and with Lurch. And I've never been more cut off from two people in my life. What should have been just a beautiful, beautiful day with two people that, I love Calhoun more than anyone on the planet. And Lurch and he is without a shadow of a doubt the oldest and most dear friend that I have. Most of the people from my past are gone. Lurch never was addicted to opiates, or there was none of that. There was, not to say he didn't party, because he did, but our connection goes back to when we were boys. I've known him since I was about 12. I met him when I first got to middle school, but there was no connection at all. We sat in the same room. We watched a movie together. There were a couple of jokes cracked, and we talked about where I was in life, where he was. Yeah, I'm sure he told me the truth, and I sat and lied to him because I couldn't really tell anybody the story of where I was in life. And that's what happens. You wall yourself off from the people that you need to speak to the most, the people that you need to share with, and the people that you need to open up to. You completely wall yourself off from. And it's a tragedy. It really is. So to the jackwagon who seemed so offended that I drank a bunch of milk, I wouldn't draw the line anywhere. I probably will eat Vegemite here at some point, and I'm not a fan. But if I can get one person to show up and say, I'll go watch that, and then that person sticks around because they have an issue in their life that is walling them off from the people they care about, drugs, alcohol, whatever the case may be. There's nothing not worth that. And if I was somebody that didn't see that, then I should find a different friggin' seat. So I'll not apologize for any of the silly stunts that I do for the purpose of trying to bring people in. And it worked. We brought in a lot of new people, and that's the goal. That will always be the goal. There will never be a different goal. That's it. The goal is to bring people here and let them realize that they're not alone. Let them meet people like the guy and Full of Hope and Charlie and Dennis and all of the people, MAGA, that will welcome them with open arms. They will enable someone to create contact when the odds of doing it with somebody that they love are really slim to none. MAGA, it's truthfully, no one's offended. No one's offended. What happens is when you start to create content and you start to put stuff up online, you open yourself up to the slings and arrows of people who, in some cases, are really honest, and in some cases, just want something to bitch about. They don't like the fact that you create content, or they don't like the fact that they don't create content, or whatever the case may be. But there are always going to be people that are going to take shots, and because of who my brother is, Johnny is considerably more well known, and whenever the two of us film together, there's the relationship that I have with Johnny is it comes across well on film, and it splits the audience into two groups. Fortunately, one group is very large and one is very small, and the there are a lot of views, especially over on Chase the Heat of that video that we did, and it's foul and it's disgusting and it was painful like you wouldn't believe. I really prefer capsaicin cramps. I really do. I prefer burning myself to what we did, but they're not offended. I mean, they may try to play the offended card. What they're trying to do is they feel like for a brief moment they've got a leg up, right? They can say something that they feel like they've got a leg to stand on to cut you down, and that's good morning, Scoob, and that's the goal. The goal is to cut you down, and I'm just the funny thing is the person will be listening to this either this morning. They probably don't get up that early, but they'll listen to it later in the day, and so I feel the need to address that, just because I do find it funny. I really do. But make no mistake, people, I would, short of jumping out of an airplane without a parachute on, there's not much that I won't do to draw attention to this fight. We have a very unique group of people here on the lifeboat, and the boat has taken on its own life from about 3 months in. I would say we started in July, and Charlie's been here the entire time. He could probably weigh in on this, but we started on July 31st, and I think we did it probably all of August and all of September, and right around October, we were able to monetize, and at that point, we were able to go live. And from that moment on, there has been a transformation of the channel, and a transformation of how we do what we do. Originally, I was planning on just coming here and talking about what Q had been able to do in my life and what he had laid out, the roadmap that he had laid out for me. And I planned on laying that out for people and hoping that they would follow in the roadmap that got me sober. That was the original goal. And good morning, Ethan. And then it changed. And it changed because you guys got a hold of it. There's no other way to put it. The crew of the lifeboat started throwing elbows, you know what I mean, and saying this is our channel and this is how it's going to be done. And from that moment to the moment that they named it to the moment I started being called captain, all of that, if you're new to the boat, all of that was done by the crew. I had nothing to do with any of that, and it's the reason that this channel has had a lot of success with people getting sober. It's the reason that, man, I read a comment yesterday that said, when I describe, last night, if you were on, when I describe my sobriety and how I got there, the boat will always be a big part of that. And that is the coolest thing in the entire world to me. There is nothing on this planet that is more debilitating. There's nothing on this planet that is more heartbreaking than watching someone who gets walled off from the people that they care about. And that's what drugs and alcohol do. They wall us off from the people that we care about. Has anybody seen M. Hunt recently? Shot him an email this morning, but since I haven't been doing the morning shows, what's going on here? What is going on here? Hold on, people. Oh, no. All right. Hold on. We just had a bit of a power outage. We still here? Can I get a 5x5? There you go. Full of hope already. Thank you. My goodness. That scared the hell out of me. We just got that boom, and the power went off. And because of the last, there we go. because of the last video we did outside, I had no power to the, good morning, CK. I had no power to the laptop. I was running purely on battery. So the battery on this is just absolutely toast. So if I'm not plugged in and I'm not getting power to the laptop, then this thing is going to shut down. So thank God I didn't lose you guys. But there really is nothing in the world to me more sad than watching somebody in a room full of people that they love with absolutely no connection to them. And I lived that for so long. It's sometimes it's heart-wrenching because, you know, when Johnny comes out, it's really kind of it hammers it home more when Johnny's here. When the two of us are together, inevitably you talk about stupid things that you did together, and you talk about funny times, and often pictures will get pulled out, right? That you'll see sort of the photo history of the family. And when I look at that, there's two things that jump out at me. Number one, there's a good 10-year period of time where I'm not in any pictures for obvious reasons, right? I'm in prison. And prior to those pictures, I mean, prior to the photos that I'm not in, which is sad, right? I mean, it really is. It's like, here's all of my loved ones, and I'm not there because of things that I did and because of my addiction. But what's worse are the pictures that predate that, the pictures the 20 years before that where I'm there, but I'm not. And I'm sure that other people don't see it because you look at the pictures and, you know, there I am and I'm smiling and I'm with the family. And I have a very, photographic is the wrong term. Describing my memory is a difficult thing. If you haven't done a lot of, there are some people that have read about the particular kind of memory that I have, and it's it's unusual. I've talked about it on the boat before. However, to make a long story short, if there is anything very, very emotional about an event, then it gets kind of etched into my brain a little bit differently. And when I look back on those photos, I remember those days differently than other people do. Often they're going to remember that photo and not much more of it. And they'll be like, oh yeah, that was the time I remember that day. I remember every part of it. I remember sneaking off right before that photo to go stick a needle in my arm, you know, in the bathroom with someone going, hey, you've been in there a long time because you can't find a vein. But I remember all of those. And I was so walled off from the people that I loved in a room full of them, just walled off from the people that I loved. And I thank God, literally, every day that at the end of my dad's life, that was not a part of me. And at the end of my dad's life, the two of us were so close. It was like, I don't know. It was like nothing that we had done before, because I got strung out at a really, really young age and spent so much time addicted to dope that the driving force behind this channel, the driving force behind everything that I do in my life, is that feeling of disconnect. It's what I want most for people who get on the lifeboat. I want people to understand, because it becomes a cliche. We've said it so many times that it just kind of starts to sound like a cliche. The opposite of addiction is connection. And it's one of those things that until that really makes sense to you, it's just something that I say. But you can tell when it really starts to make sense, because I get really long emails and I get beautiful, letters written where they say, you know what, when I'm with my son or I'm with my daughter or I'm with whoever, it's one of those things that I feel more deeply. And they really kind of have a feeling for what it means to be walled off from those they loved. Right before we had the power outage, I was saying, I haven't seen Em Hunt. And, a lot of it has to do with that. I am not here in the mornings. I haven't been here in a while. But if I sent him an email, if anybody sees Em Hunt, man, just tell him I love him. And he's in my prayers. You're all in my prayers, for the record. But, there are people that have just been on the boat for so long, and you've just been on such a journey with them, that if I don't see them for a day, I start panicking. And I know that that's probably not, it's not smart, but it's also nothing that I can avoid. So I just hope that he's been around. I really, I care deeply for him. Monk, good to see you. Monk. Last night after after Johnny and I did our show together last night, he said to me, "Man, you got to go get that tape." It is a answering machine tape from 30 years ago, maybe more than that. Well, a really long time ago. Yeah, 31, 32 years ago, something like that. But it has that whole monk thing, and it Barabbas. Do we need some prayers? I'm all for that. So, going forward, people, one of the one of the great litmus tests. One of the great litmus tests for where you're at in sobriety is full of hope. 32 years before I was born. Yes. Actually, I had not been born yet either, which is really kind of unusual. But one of the great litmus tests is where are you with the people that you love? Do you feel that connection? Because if you don't, then chances are the journey is not where it needs to be. And in the one of the reasons that I beat the crap out of this journaling thing, and if you're not journaling, start the things that you need to discuss in order to connect with people on a real level. Very often you can't have that conversation, but you can have it with a journal. Before I was able to apologize for the things that I have done, I was able to apologize to a journal. I was able to open up for all of the reasons that Scoob, I'm going to use you as an example, and don't take this the wrong way, but Scoob says, my brother, I do, my other brother and sister, sadly not. They rarely talk to me. I'm not using you as an example. I'm using me as an example, but that made me think of it. The last person that I connected with was my little sister. And everybody was back in my life. I had a beautiful connection with every single person back in my life, except my little sister. And it was because in my head, I hadn't done anything wrong. As far as I was concerned, everybody had accepted me back except her. And that's her fault, not mine. And that's just not the way it was. For me, this is just me. I'm not making, that is absolutely sad, Scoob. It really is. But for me, I get this righteous indignation where you start feeling like, you know what? Damn it, I got sober. That person ought to be coming to me, congratulating me. And it's really easy sometimes to forget the damage that we've done, especially when you start getting a little momentum, right? I mean, here I am. I'm running the channel. I'm helping people get sober. Everything that I'm doing is sort of wrapped around sobriety. There's this push in my life that is all about being sober, getting sober, helping people get sober. Why does she not see that? And the reason she doesn't see that is because she's seen that BS, right? The lie version of that 25 times. She was not around me enough to see that this was real. And the only way that was going to happen is if I made a much more serious effort to reach out and connect to her, which I did. And it's been absolutely amazing since. There is now nobody in my family, thank God, that I am not connected to. And that connection can happen at 4,000 miles. It can happen at 12 to 15,000 miles. I asked for prayers earlier for Lady Crispin, who is on the other side of the planet. Yet I've been able to connect with Fiona like I've connected with very few people in my life. It's what it comes down to is honesty at a place and at a level that sometimes hurts. But to start rebuilding those connections, start off being honest with the journal. If you feel like you can't say the things that need to be said to the people that you love, say it to the journal. And by the time you really get good at saying it to the journal, And by the time you have unraveled that and taken all of the credit where credit is due and all of the blame where blame is due, it will put you in a position where you're going to be much more comfortable talking to the people that you care about such things. Oh, come on. Ultra Maga says, almost everyone in my life has gotten over and forgiven me for everything I have put them through when I was getting high, but I have one aunt that just seems to be holding on to that anger. You know what? I completely get that, Maga. I really do. And it's really a hard thing because we want so badly for people to realize that we've changed. And there are people, make no mistake, there are people who are never going to accept the new you. There are people in my life, thankfully not family at this point, but there are people in my life who think this is an angle, right? I got to be getting rich on this lifeboat thing. Why the hell would he be doing this, right? There's got to be an angle. I guarantee you this is about getting rich. There's got to be something because there's no way Tommy is doing this. It's just not who he is. And the truth of it is, I've given nobody reason to believe me, right? I've got 8 years of sobriety in after 30 some odd years of being a drug addict. So by the time I've got 30 years of sobriety in, sadly, a lot of those people will be gone. But you cannot change how somebody looks at you except by being the person that you want to be, by being the page 3 version of who you are. And if you are that person and you are living that, you will find that it gets a lot easier when somebody decides that you're just not real. The ability to just go, yeah, you know what? I'm not doing this for them. I'm not. It's great when somebody sees that I'm a different person. I'm glad that you still talk to your aunt, though. That's huge. And I know that there's that discomfort you're talking about is legit. It was crazy is that I have a whole side of my family that honestly, when I was in prison, didn't know I was in prison. They had to have a pretty damn good idea, but I disappeared for about 10 years. And when they would ask where I was, the standard answer was, I don't want to talk about it. That's what my family said. And I think the reason is they were afraid. My family was afraid that they would be judged because of the things that I did. And I get that. I really do. But it was amazing because we got together last year and we were all sitting around and talking, and someone said something about a family event that I wasn't at. And I just said, no, I was in prison for that. I'm a bank robber. And I just let it fly. And the look on everyone's face in the room, I think at first it was shock, but I owned it in a way that I think, and I said, you know what, you got questions about this. I've got answers. If you feel like you need to hear more about this, I'll be more than happy to tell you all about it. My past at this point is, I had a person last week, not a very nice person, that last week basically said that I enjoy keeping one foot in the drug and crime game, and that's why I do what I do, which really misses the point. But the reason that I get that is because you get people all the time that say, you know what, you can help people. Just don't talk about your past. Don't tell them the things that you've done. How in the hell do you do that? For real. How do I become a new person if I pretend that the old person didn't exist? I don't know. I'm not telling anybody how to live. I'm not telling anybody how to do anything. I come here and I talk about what worked for me. And for me, if I don't own my past, and I mean own it, then I'm really, really at danger of repeating it. The fact that it's rare that a day goes by that I don't have to talk about my past. I've structured my life in such a way that sharing the mistakes that I've made is very much a part of what I do to help other people. And that has enabled me to accept the mistakes that I've made and to move on from them. I think that if I pretended they didn't happen, I probably would spend a great deal of time locked in it. I'm not proud of the things that I've done. However, because of the things that I've done, it becomes very easy. Um, because Zen Wen isn't here. Yeah, ZW is. She's definitely. She's she's solid. Hopefully, ZW is sleeping in. She deserves that from time to time. But thank you. I really appreciate that. Got a journal last night. Was put it down, but I really want a six pack and just barely turned six, and it just barely uh, turned six. You know what? That journal will become your best friend. It will, and that would have been my absolute first thing that I wrote. I so badly want a six pack. If you knew how many journal entries in my 10 years, 9 years now, because I started journaling before I was sober, but so many entries just started with, boy, do I want a shot. Boy, do I want to get high. Boy, do I need this. And it enabled me to start bleeding about this. If you wouldn't have told us about your past in a legit way, I would have considered you way too phony for me to continue to watch. You know what? I love that, Tommy Bird. Thank you. Can I write my way out of uneffing my day? Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can. I do every day. Every day. People, I want to tell you something. There are days I still want to get high. There are. There are absolutely days I still want to get high. There are usually days when somebody that I really care about is hurting. It's not so much when I am. I've gotten really good at dealing with pain to myself. I really struggle when somebody that I love is hurting and I can't do anything. That really, really hurts me. And it's something that those are the days that I want to get high. And it's the first thing I write. I write my way out of so much shit you can't imagine. Pardon me. The amount of things that I have saved myself from with the pen. I remember a night, this was in prison, this was not on the street, but I remember a night where I may have told this story before, but I'll tell it again. My best friend in prison when I was getting high was the shot caller for the entire yard. He was a member of a Mexican prison gang, and the yard was his. In other words, everything that happened there had to go through him. So if somebody smuggled drugs into the prison, he got 10% of it. If somebody mailed something in and got by the people whose job it was to catch that, he got 10% of it. Every single person on the yard owed him X amount of dollars every single month. It works out to be about $10. It's one flat book of stamps, but every single person in the yard, that's a crap load of money. And when I was getting high with him, he didn't have the yard. It wasn't his. So I spent a lot of dough getting him high. We were sort of partners. And I remember him coming to me, and I had been sober a while, and he said, I've got China White, which is a type of heroin that doesn't appear often where I live. But he said, you got to check this out. And I said, yeah, I'm good, dude. You know, I'm still sticking with this sober thing. And he's like, oh yeah, I understand. He goes, I just wanted you to see how much I got because it's ridiculous. And I said, yeah, I'm good. And about 45 minutes later, he came into my cell and dropped a bag about that big on the table. And I remember looking down at it and just thinking, good God, like if I were in the real world, that's a staggering amount of drugs. But to see it in prison was just, and I remember walking out of my cell, I said, that's crazy. And I walked out of my cell and I went down to Q. And I just said, dude, there's China White here. And there's so much of it here. And he said, well, then you probably ought to dive into that book. And I was like, what book are we talking about? Because I was reading a book a day. And he's like, your journal. And I kid you not, man, I probably spent 7 hours writing. I'm not exaggerating. I literally just sat there and wrote and wrote and wrote. And you start off writing things like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this day. I don't know how I'm going to get by. With the amount of stuff that's in this unit right now, I don't know how I'm going to get by. And if you just let that stream of conscious start going, Within 3 pages, I'm writing about the birth of my daughter. And within 6 more pages, I'm writing about the day that Calhoun was born. And all of these things that it's your brain starts to work out the reasons why you're not going to do this, even without you thinking about it. The next thing you know, you're writing all the damn reasons you're not going to get high. I never intended to do that. It's not why I started to write. I started to write because somebody I trusted more than I trusted myself told me to put pen to paper. And you son of a, what is going on? Do not quit. What's on with the battery here? Honestly, I have no idea what's going on with this. Come on. All right. Hopefully we're good. Hopefully we're good. All right. So, but yeah, somebody that really, it's like Jeffrey Epstein. The cameras didn't work. John Doe, let me tell you something. I know that this is squirreling off in a different direction, but I got to hit this, John Doe. When I was in federal prison, I got the diagnosis about my brain, and it was, they made it a lot worse than it is. I'm hanging in there, but boy, oh boy, did they hang crepe. They told me, how fast it was going to be before I wouldn't be able to put a sentence together, and they just scared the crap out of me. And I said, there's no way I'm going to let that happen to me. I'll take my life first. And you really got to be careful saying things like that in prison. I told the counselor that, and then I went to my cell. And about 40 seconds later, there were 3 cops at the door. And I'm like, cell search? And he's like, no, you got to come with me. And I was like, all right. And these 3 walked like a triangle with me in the middle of it. And they took me to down to R&D, right, which is where medical and everything else was. And the guy put me in a room and threw in one of those Barney Rubble suits that you put on, the suicide smocks. And I said, I'm not putting that on. I'm like, I'm not suicidal. I'm not putting that on. And the guy's like, oh, you're putting it on. I said, trust me, I'm not. He's like, we will get in there and we will rip your clothing off. You will put that on, or you can just put it on. And there was a reason they picked these 3 guys, because they were probably 800 pounds, between the 3 of them. It was a pretty large group of guys. So I put it on. And then what happened is they wanted to ship me to a medical yard. And the medical yard that they wanted to ship me to is where people go to die. I'm like, I'm not kidding. It's one of the most depressing places on the planet, according to anybody that knows anything. It's not where you want to be. And they said, sign this document. We'll have you on a plane tomorrow, right? And you will get shipped to blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not signing that. This was Thanksgiving Day. Every day they brought that piece of paper and said, sign this and you're off suicide watch. I spent the entire month of December on suicide watch. And on New Year's Eve, right? I spent New Year's Eve, I spent Christmas, I spent New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve on suicide watch. And suicide watch is, let me tell you how this works. It'll tell you what BS that Epstein thing is. You're not in a cell like another cell. You're in a cell that the front door is glass from top to bottom. The entire thing is glass. And they have a cop that comes by every 15 minutes, but they've got an inmate that sits in a chair staring at you for 4 hours. 4 hours later, another inmate comes and rotates and sits there. So there is not 1 minute of the day that you do not have somebody staring at you, an inmate. And then every 15 minutes, a cop comes by, checks, signs a piece of paper. So the fact that guy took his life and no one saw it, that didn't happen. I assure you that did not happen. They've got that down to a science. So that is, we don't see tar in the UK, Afghan brown rock and powder. Barabbas, we call that brownstone in the US. And I was always a pretty big fan of it. It's not a whole lot of difference between that and tar. It really isn't. Right, Cap. Yeah, you know what? Let them come for me. At this point, full of hope, I'm ready. Let them come. The tires. It's one less process. And that's really what it comes down to. When they slip the bulb and they take the stuff out, it takes 5 processes to turn it into powder. It takes 4 to turn it into tar. So they just stop at that level. And there are people who say it's awesome, and there are people who say it isn't. So So Epstein is partying with Ken Lang. Epstein is smoking turds in hell, which is exactly where he ought to be. A worthless piece of. There's absolutely no forgiving that. There are there are a lot of sins I have no problem forgiving people for, especially in the crime world. There are a lot of honestly. There are I have met people who killed. I have met people who killed people, and a lot of them, for the record, and it's I don't respect the taking of somebody's life, but you can certainly understand it. You know what I mean? Like I did time with a guy who came home and found his wife of 11 years uh, in bed with two people, and he killed one, and then he grabbed the other one, put them in a vehicle, drove that person about 8 miles where he planned on getting rid of the person. But that 8 miles took him across a state line, which made it a federal offense. Now, I don't respect what he did, but I can understand flipping out. But the stuff that Epstein and the sick bastards like Epstein, the things that are done to kids, I can't wrap my brain around, right? Like murder is not cool, but I can understand why somebody did it. He freaked out, he lost his mind, and he started shooting people. Not cool, but I understand it. But somebody that can do that to a kid, that's not something I can wrap my brain around. I don't have the capacity. Like my gray matter can't connect the dots to make that make sense to me. And for that reason, I don't care. I don't care what they do to him. I don't care. Epstein deserves what he got. But it would have been nice if he could have told us all of his dirt before he went away. But I have a feeling that'll come out in the long run. I have a feeling that probably will be the case. Y'all are the first people beside my family and two other online friends that I'm this open about my disorders with. And does it feel good, Scoob? For real. Because that's what connection is. It's the ability to say, here's my problems. It is so easy to say, let me tell you all the good stuff about Tommy, right? Boy, I'm a great guy. Let me tell you about my awesome sense of humor. Did I mention I'm a really good skier? Did I ever tell you about some of my skiing stuff? Did I show you some pictures? But to come here and say, I am really, Dominic, I like it. But to come here and say, I've got some problems and here's what they are. That is, you're not going to be, you're never going to be judged for them here. And you know what? I'll preface that by saying this. From time to time, a jackass is going to pop up and say something stupid. What I can promise you is, my wrenches, they're not going to let that happen for a very, very short period of time. The wrenches here are awesome. I've got the best in the business. And when an ass shows up, an ass gets wrenched. And for that reason, we do love you, Scoob. You know what? I care really deeply about all of you. I really do. And I've said this a million times. There have been days where I'm struggling to beat hell. And when those days happen and it's somewhat obvious or people are able to pick up on it, I've never had one of those days where Scoob didn't reach out and go, hey, are you all right? Not one. So I'm a big fan of Scoob. That's right. The wrench will be flying. Risperidone. I'm familiar with that as a medication. Believe it or not, that drug is abused in prison. It's amazing the things that people will do to feel a buzz. Scooby with a doobie, we could compare diagnoses. Again, connection. Let me explain something that I know you all know, but just in case somebody that watched me puke milk yesterday catches this video for the first time. One of the things that made it possible for me to get sober when I couldn't in the past was I sat down and I started talking to Q, and he said to me, I've helped people get sober. And I said, great. You've never dealt with anybody like me. And he said, you don't think so? I said, no, I don't think so. And there was a guy in there who was doing 25 years for, he worked for one of the cartels. And on paper, he was not a very good guy. Like he'd done some pretty ridiculously evil stuff. But He was part of a very large smuggling operation, and he handled my drug. Like that's what he smuggled. And the United States of America had said that at one point, more than 50% of anything that hit the United States in terms of heroin came from him. 50%, which is bizarre if you think about it, people. I mean, that's really somebody that has spent a lot of time getting this crap to the country. And I said, is there a reason you're sharing this with me? You just want me to hate this dude or what? He said he had a 3-ounce a day habit, only smoked it. But he said he would smoke it from the time he got up in the morning until the time he went to bed. 3 zips a day. I said, there's no chance of that being possible. Like a person couldn't do that. So the following day when I met with Q, the guy was sitting in there. And I said, you did 3 ounces a day? And he said, yeah. I said, how? He said, in glass pipes. And I'm like, how do you smoke tar out of a glass pipe? Like it didn't even make sense to me. And as he described what this guy was doing, this guy was literally packing glass pipes with his thumb and then hitting the side of it with a torch. And it would go down into a reservoir, almost like you would do with meth. And I just said to him, good Lord. I said, how did you get sober? And he went and pointed at Q. And for the first time in my life, I thought to myself, if this dude can get clean, I can get clean. Realizing that there is somebody out there who is like me, but managed to get out. Knowing you're not alone is the reason that group therapy works no matter what the hell is wrong with you. Like it doesn't matter what's going on. No matter how bad what is happening in your life is, knowing that there's somebody else who has the same problem and is doing well is enough to give you hope. And hope is the greatest gift for people in addiction. In fact, I would go farther than that and say it's the greatest hope, period. But it is most assuredly the greatest hope for anyone who needs any kind of assistance, getting out of any kind of trouble, to realize that you're not alone. Hey, all. I just got to work. I hope you guys have a good day. Ultra MAGA, have a great day, brother. And hopefully we see you later today, huh? Be safe. Be good. God bless. 2 literally keep harassing me, hoping I'll let myself get violent. 1 purposely chipped my boyfriend's car glass. The other keeps trying to make me drink and then tells me to go die. But you know what, Scoob? You're going to reach out. You're also going to write things down in a journal if you start feeling like things are beyond the control or beyond the ability to tell somebody. You're going to tell it to the book. This is going to sound stupid, really sound stupid, but I used to name it. Like I haven't done this in a very long time, but I used to refer to the book as Chip. Chip. And I would go in there and address Chip as if he was a friend of mine. And it was chip is an expression. Chipping is an expression that heroin addicts use if they don't have a full habit and you only do it a couple of days a week or whatever they call it, chipping. And hey, Dill, good to see you, bud. Glad that you love the channel, man. Really do. Glad that you're here. That's awesome. Welcome to the boat. Glad that you're here. True story. But I would go in there and start writing to Chip. Chip, let me tell you what's going on. You know, this is where I'm at. Knowing that there are people out there going through the same thing is such a huge, huge blessing, because we feel alone. You know what alone is, right? It's the opposite of connection. The addiction's favorite weapon is making you feel like you're different than everybody else. It's what keeps us in it. It really is. I mean, yeah, that person got sober, but they're not like me. That person could do it, but no one did dope like I did, right? Like Keith Richards would look at me and say, you got to slow your roll. There was nobody like me, until there is, until you realize that, you know what? And this is another thing that I really struggled with. I thought that if I'm doing 7 grams of heroin a day, then somebody who's doing 1 gram of heroin a day has no perspective at all on what I'm doing or what I'm talking about, And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't make a crap bit of difference. It really doesn't. All that means is that over a long enough period of time, but I am in fact different. Well, you know something? Here's the deal. We're all different. But I assure you, as an addict, there's no difference. There really isn't. We we feel different. We absolutely do. Look, man, I walked into banks and said, I need you to give me the top drawer and the bottom drawer right now. All of it. Hand it to me. I was so far deep into my addiction that I'm not stupid. I'm a fairly well-educated guy. But I got to the point where I was robbing banks to keep my habit going. I wasn't robbing banks to get rich. I was robbing banks just to bring in enough dough so that I wouldn't get dope sick. And so when people started talking to me about how, well, no, you can get sober, I'm like, are you kidding me? You guys are writing bad checks. I'm robbing friggin' banks. Doesn't matter. Does not matter at all. If you get up in the morning and you need something and you can't get through without it, you're just like everybody else. You feel different. You feel like you're in deeper, you're doing more, you need it more. Addiction's addiction. It really is. Yeah, I told myself I was a chipper until I realized that I had been taking it for 6 months with only a day or two between sessions. Wow. Yep. That reminds me. Tea's on the way. They robbed the weed store here. You know what? This is going to sound so much like a criminal, but I remember when I was in prison when all of these weed stores started to open, and I thought to myself, boy, oh boy, there's going to be a lot of people robbing those because there is just so much money, right? The federal government doesn't allow those people to use banks the way normal people use banks, and so many people who go into weed stores pay with cash because a lot of them don't have accounts and they're not using plastic. And I know that in Nevada, even if you go in with a card, they've got like 4 ATMs and you got to go and they will not do anything but cash. So, but in this state, and California was even crazier. Like I remember I used to have to walk like the last half mile to, because we'd get off on a bus. I would have to do the last half mile on foot to get to where I worked. And in that half a mile, there were 2 dispensaries and there were armed guards. And I'm talking about armed guards. Like these guys had weaponry, usually like something on a sling around their, not AK-47s, but they definitely had automatic weapons, like Uzi looking, submachine gun looking stuff. They had armed guards because they want to make sure that people don't go in there. They got all the cash. Good Lord. You realize what one day of that would be, John, though? They got a lot of money. Full of Hope says, I love you, Scooby, with a doobie. You know what? There's nobody here that doesn't love you, Scoob. That's the truth. Robbing everywhere now. Yeah. Here it's, all cash. It is just an all cash business. I did an Navage this morning, and I wish I did. But Squirrel was giving me hell this morning. Squirrel is not in the basket because when I let her into the garage, like she caught the scent of a rodent, and I could not get her out of there, and she was driving me crazy. I tried selling them silver. No go. Just pure cash. I get it. I have been feeling in the very near future there's going to be a lot of silver trading hands. All cash here in New York, too. Stand for truth. New York is a very odd state in that on the island of Manhattan, there are 5 licenses for places that can legally sell weed. 5. But they estimate that there are about 400 places that are selling weed. And they just pay the fines. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the fine is. If you're making $75,000 in cash a day, what do you care what the fines are, right? But once again, it's such a great idea that they don't think these things through ahead of time. And that's one of the problems that we have. Weed is still illegal here, but police don't really care about it. It was happening like that here before it went fully legal. You could get caught with weed and they would just sort of dump it out. Stand for truth. You are really close to where Scoob lives. Um, my old business partner back when I was doing the infomercials lived in Lake Honeoye. So it's right up by your neck of the woods. He had a place right on Lake Ontario. Huge place on Lake Ontario. We actually filmed there a couple of times. What happens when CBDC and no cash? You know what, John Doe? It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. That's where we're going with that. True story. I live between Buff and Roch 2. I live close to Darien Lake Theme Park, actually. I know where that is. Full of Hope says, John Doe, I could write a book. And she's not lying. That's where I saw Slipknot and Motionless and White. Nice. I'm directly north of you. Scoob says, stand for truth. Well, when I tour the U.S. going to see people from the crew, I'll know where to go in New York, eh? That day is coming. I'm not kidding you. There's a day coming where, all right, so we are up to the sun is starting to rise over the mountains, so I'm probably going to cut this short. But I do have, the winters are pretty tough upstate, to be sure. I have got a bit of an announcement, and I can't really get into this in depth, but I will tell you this. The goal is always to make the lifeboat bigger, to make the lifeboat better, to reach as many people as possible. And if it means vomiting milk out my nose or anything else for that matter, I will be doing that. That being said, a much larger platform than YouTube has been in discussions with my brother and myself about the Scoville brothers doing something together that would put us on a much larger stage, so to speak. And it's not etched in stone, but we're working on something that is going to bring a lot more people to the boat. And if that works, what it will do is bring in a lot more people that need help. The core group right now, just don't leave the comment section. Keep doing what you're doing. I have watched channels go from 4,000 or 5,000 people to 300,000, and the core group never changes unless they do. Right? If you always are sticking around and always doing what you do, then the boat will not change in terms of that. And you know what? I don't want it to. It's going to happen, Charlie. It's just. It's going to happen. It just depends on how it's going to happen. But the talks are underway, so we'll see. We'll see, but it's going to happen at some level. We're just not exactly sure when. So, do like a Smothers Brothers return. John Doe. I didn't think you would be old enough to for a Smothers Brothers reference, but that's awesome. All right, peeps. I'm going to go watch that sun come up over the hills because that's what I do in the morning. God bless you. If you see Heather, thank her, right? Heather's been really working hard for us here on the boat. She's done an awful lot to keep the boat afloat, and really love her for that. Really, really love her for that. You have a great day too, guy. Scoob. We're always going to be nice to you, Scoob. That's what family does. The opposite of addiction, connection. And there will always be connection here. It's called Lifeboat for a good reason. I love that. Make a hell of a good t-shirt right there. Where's my merch guy? All right, peeps. We'll see you later on today. Do me a favor. You might want to check out Chase the Heat later. I think it's going to be, sure we're doing something silly. So hopefully it doesn't involve vomiting, but do check out Chase the Heat a little later today. Barabbas, be good. Ethan, take care. And I love y'all. I really do. From the bottom of my heart. My formerly black heart. All right? No cat in the basket. She's hunting rodents. God bless. See you soon. Monk, 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 monk.